Welcome everyone to Aging in Action, and we're very happy to have with us today Cristina Scarpellini. And Cristina is with the Angels of Hope Against Human Trafficking.
Welcome.
Hi, Cristina.
Hi, Cristina.
Hey. Well, that's a pretty heavy topic, isn't it? It's there's a lot going on in the North that a lot of people are probably not even aware of. I mean, we've talked before, but I mentioned, I've heard about North Bay, but certainly I've heard about a lot of things going on in Sudbury as well with human trafficking. And maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and your organization, and then just tell us what's going on.
So I'm the founder and executive director of Angels of Hope Against Human Trafficking. We are based out of Sudbury, but we provide services to survivors of human trafficking, at-risk people that are at risk of being trafficked, as well as guidance, support, education, and counseling for survivors' loved ones across Ontario. We've branched out across Ontario because we've seen a need for our services. So that's why we decided to branch out. So if there's a survivor or a survivor's loved one that's not in our catchment area, we could provide them services via phone or Zoom. But if you are in the Sudbury region, we will go to you if that's what you want. Our organization was founded in 2015 by myself. I was in active addiction for many years, using drugs as a substitute for mental health treatment. And when I was in active addiction, I seen firsthand the correlation between human trafficking and mental health and addictions. And I knew that I wanted to do something about it when I knew it was my time to abstain from substances. So after I got clean, I went back to school and became a Canadian certified addictions counselor. And now I start Angels of Hope, and we have different programs and different funding that help us help survivors. So right now, we're currently funded through the federal government through Women and Gender Equality. We're funded through the Canadian Women's Foundation. And just recently, starting November 1st, we got another $100,000 grant from the Law Foundation of Ontario to provide court support for survivors of human trafficking, as well as we're going to be producing materials such as videos, brochures, fact sheets for survivors so that they have a better understanding of what the court process is going to look like and what it all entails. Because I found that a lot of survivors are hesitant to go through the court process, whether it be because of intimidation factors. Their trafficker has, forewarned them that if you ever go to police or press charges, A, B, and C will happen to you, as well as they don't have a good grasp or understanding of what the court process will look like. So we're hoping that with our new programs and services funded through the Law Foundation, that survivors will be more inclined to wanting to go through with the court process, and we will be there with them every step of the way.
Cristina, what is human trafficking?
So human trafficking, in simple terms, would be someone that's either forced, coerced, lured into sell. And I'm going to be specific when I say sex trafficking, not human trafficking. So this is I'm speaking about sex trafficking. Is when you're forced, coerced, lured against your own will to perform sexual acts, and you're not getting your money, or the trafficker is getting a cut of the money. In Canada right now, our laws are you're allowed to advertise your own sexual services, but it's illegal to purchase them. And the reason that the law was made that way is to protect the sex worker and the person that's being trafficked. So they're allowed to, like I said, advertise their own sexual services. It's just illegal to purchase them.
Interesting. I didn't know that, Christy. You just taught me something actually really interesting. I have a question. When it comes to education, to understand that you are working also with education components to bring awareness to the younger generation, right? To advise them of what to look for. What are some of the maybe tells when you're in the, like when you're, I don't know, high school, and you're not sure what it's going to look like for human trafficking. So what is your role right now? And are you working in our communities in the North at all? And if that's something that we should be advocating for, to make sure that the younger generations are also aware of what it is human trafficking entails, not just female, but male also.
Yes, that's a great question. So for the youth in elementary school, what we started doing is a campaign called Empowered Kids Campaign. And we go to the schools, that's elementary, and we talk about empowering kids because we feel that empowered kids are less likely to fall victim of human trafficking. We provide them with a pizza lunch, and they show us they have time in advance to do something that they feel empowered by, whether it be a drawing that, they play hockey and that makes them feel empowered. And we really focus on those kinds of things because we feel that, talking to kids at an elementary school level just about human trafficking, they just wouldn't grasp that concept.
Right.
So we took it and softened the language around it and called it the Empowered Kids Campaign. For kids in high school, we're raw about it. I feel that they're at the age that that's where they're going to get lured. That's when they're going to get groomed, and they need to hear it firsthand what exactly human trafficking is and what it all entails. A lot of I find the youth, when we do talk about it, are very surprised that these things happen in our region because they see movies and they think this happens in foreign countries and big cities, and this can never happen in a small Northern Ontario community. But unfortunately, Sudbury is considered a hub for human trafficking, and there's a demand here for sex trafficking. And after the illegal drug trade, human trafficking is the second most lucrative market. And the reason for that is because you can only sell drugs one time and then it's gone. A person you can sell over and over and over again, and it's so much more profitable for a trafficker. So we really try to get the youth to grasp all these concepts so they get a good understanding of what human trafficking is, what it looks like, what the grooming process is, so that they're well equipped with this educational tools to be able to see if this is something that's happening to them, and also what to do if they suspect something like this is happening to them.
So I have a question, and it's probably a silly one, but so you're saying that Sudbury is a hot spot, or the North is a hot spot, which I find really shocking because I didn't know that. But so the human trafficking, are these boys and girls that grew up in our community, or are these boys and girls that are brought into our community? Like, are these our neighbors' kids, or am I asking the right way here?
No, I understand what you're saying. So I always say the three most what is it? The three most scariest words is not my child. So people assume that it'll never happen to their child.
Right,
well, let me
right.
tell you that anybody and anyone's little boy or girl or adult is vulnerable to sex trafficking. So what we have been seeing here is what they call is the circuit. So it's either girls or guys from Sudbury getting brought across the circuit across Ontario, or it's other females or males brought in from other cities within Ontario and brought into our community. As disgusting as this is going to sound, fresh meat or a new girl or boy is a lot more valuable to a trafficker, because I've noticed in my experience that Johns seek out new individuals. So that's why they do the circuit.
This is just so awful. I mean, and I live in a bubble, I mean, I hear about these things, but I to my best of my knowledge, I haven't been touched by that in my family, but I don't know, right? Because it is so, I guess it's pushed down and buried so deep that people don't talk about it. And we have to, because we keep hearing these stories of these kids being taken advantage of. And it's hard not to get emotional about it because it's just so shocking. And I think just even last night or something on the news, they're talking like
107 people charged in Ontario with child sexual exploitation.
Like,
Two from Greater Sudbury.
it sends a shiver up my spine, because your next door neighbor could be one of these people doing this. It is just so shocking. And I guess, you think, well, did that happen during my childhood? Was this going on and I didn't know about it? Or is it just much more prolific right now because of the internet and the ease of reaching these kids? Like, am I just naive to think that it never happened before and now it is?
I think this always has transpired, but it's really gone to the forefront now because people are starting to realize that this is a huge issue, that it's extremely lucrative market, and this is happening to anyone, anywhere in Ontario.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's, you keep hearing these things, and I guess, like a lot of things, we become numb to the news. And you don't think, okay, yeah, I just keep hearing story after story about, kids being, exploited, and if it doesn't affect you personally, you go on with your day, but we're all responsible. We need to be part of this equation and part of the answer to this. All of us need to be aware. And if you don't know about it, you can't do anything about it either. Like,
if we're going to eradicate human trafficking, it's going to be a community effort. Like, not one organization or one person can tackle this on their own.
Yeah.
This is going to be a community effort where everybody gets behind it and, does their best to stop this.
Cristina, you have a lot of workshops that you actually, engage in community on, for, not just the victims themselves of human trafficking, but support streams and individuals. Is there a workshop that also helps the family and surrounding members, because I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm going to be a victim of human trafficking, there's a long journey, a road ahead of me, right, to heal and to take back what's mine and what's rightfully mine, my body, my soul. Are there other support groups in the community also that you work with, or are you basically right now the main front and bringing a voice to help support those individuals?
I believe there are some other organizations that do similar work, but as for just an organization that solely specializes in human trafficking, we're the only one.
It's kind of scary when you think of it, right? That it's such a like Lisette and Gwen just mentioned, it's such a topic that many of us probably don't want to think about in our communities, but it's here and it's happening. What can we do ourselves in our community to bring education? Is there, I guess a foundation right now with yourself that we can volunteer time, education, you take volunteers in general, or do you have to have a certified, like a hat to be like a social worker or something? But do you take volunteers also to help in all of this navigating? And, like you mentioned about how going to the courts and how we're going to move across the navigation process of our court system. Are you looking for volunteers to help in any way?
At the moment, no, we are not looking for any volunteers. And the reason for that is because of the nature of the work, it takes very long to train someone, and not a lot of people I've noticed are, they're excited, they want to volunteer, but I don't feel they really know what this all entails. As well as there's vicarious trauma that, we could possibly experience. So it could be a liability for us. And it could be very traumatizing to the volunteer as well. So for the time being, we just felt that we're going to stick with our 14 members and keep it at that for now. But that's not to say that we don't recruit volunteers for fundraising, for that kind of stuff. But in terms of working directly one-on-one with survivors of human trafficking, right now, no, we don't take volunteers.
I would think they'd be powerful stories to be shared with the individuals themselves as they're going through the process and, taking back their own themselves. Do they support and also help provide that storytelling to individuals that may be potentially victims? Do they also go in with you into the education systems or media shared stories, or do they usually keep that to themselves?
So all 4 team members that we have all have some sort of lived experience, and our Indigenous social worker is actually a survivor of sex trafficking herself. So she often goes and shares her stories when we do workshops and presentations and whatnot. She comes along with us and she shares her story of survival, and she has quite a story, and she's such the inspiration. She now holds a master's in Indigenous social work, and she's a survivor of sex trafficking that grew up in the foster care system. Like, this woman is incredible. Her story is so empowering to youth and to any other survivor or anyone that may be experiencing something similar to this. So she is such an asset to the organization. So yes, we do have her come on board, as well as do one-on-one counseling, and share her story with others.
Powerful.
So as people in the community, what can we do? What do we need to look for to maybe help? You know what I mean? Like, you're bringing this forward to me today, and like Gwen, I was like oblivious, not in Sudbury, right? So what should, as community, what should we be looking for to help?
There's so many different things to look for, and it's not to say that these specific things are what to look for, and anything out of that is not human trafficking. Because human traffickers are so creative that they seem to come up with new and innovative ways to groom, to lure, to whatnot. A good place to get some really helpful resources would be the Canadian Human Trafficking website. So they actually have a Canadian Human Trafficking hotline that you could report to if you suspect someone's being trafficked, and they have wonderful educational tools on their website on different things to look for if you suspect someone's being trafficked, and what to do if you suspect someone is being trafficked. So that's definitely something, if you're interested in learning more about the signs of human trafficking, is to visit their website.
From your experience, what would some of those, what would that entail? What would be something that you think would be really important right now to a viewer or a listener? Maybe they have a situation that you think, might be something for you to kind of do a little bit of due diligence and investigate. What would be a tell that you think is important to share?
Change in behavior is a huge one. Isolation, the person isolating themselves, new and expensive things that they can't afford. They're coming home with a new Gucci purse, let's say, and that individual can't afford a brand new Gucci purse, but they have it. And that's a huge red flag, because I notice that traffickers often buy their victims expensive things, and then all of a sudden turn around and say, you owe me for those things. This is what you're going to do now to pay off your debt. A lot of the time, I notice substances come into play with this drug. You notice the individual may be under the influence of something, and that's not normal behavior for them. That's another telltale sign. There's so many, but those are, I find, the most prevalent ones to look for.
Is there a sort of an average age that that is being targeted more? Are we talking, under the age of 18, or I'm sure it's a broad range, but are they targeting younger girls, boys, or what? Who's the ones that, I guess when you're that young too, 12, 13, you're very vulnerable and easily influenced too, because is there a typical age that they like?
So as sick as it's going to sound, the younger you are, the more money you're going to make. John seemed to like young girls. I don't get it, and I never will be able to wrap my head around something like that. But the younger you are, the more money you make. And in my personal experience with my clientele right now, I think our youngest is 12 years old,
Jesus.
and our youngest is 30 years old. And I find the young ones are in foster care. And they're lured from there because, they have insecurity issues. Mom and dad aren't there. They're in foster homes or group homes, and they're extremely vulnerable, and they're getting lured from there. But that's not to say that, a high-end family that makes, let's say, a lot of money, that lives in a great area, their kid isn't vulnerable to being human trafficked. So this trafficking doesn't discriminate against a certain class of people. It's just unfortunate that there's populations that are more vulnerable to it, such as a child in foster care, let's say.
Well, and as a parent, you wouldn't believe that your little girl or your little boy at 12 or 13 that this could even touch their lives, but it doesn't matter. They're out there, right? These predators are out there, and you can't take for granted that because they are a child still, that somebody's not attracted to that. It's just overwhelming to think that this is going on in our community, but it's reality. We're hearing about it every single day about these things.
Sudbury has a serious problem with human trafficking right now. A serious problem, whether it be, like I said, individuals coming in from other cities, from Ontario into Sudbury to work, or being forced to work, let's say, or they're from Sudbury being transported out of Sudbury through the circuit across Ontario. But Sudbury is considered a hotspot. And in my experience, I've noticed that it is considered a hotspot because of our geographical area and the demand for it that we have here, that we're a small mining community.
Right. So where is this happening? Like, are they going into hotels, motels? Like, I have heard, aren't there some hotels and motels now that are I think I might have seen something in washrooms or something, flyers maybe. Like, why is it they're not on the streets? They're in the background, right? They're in the where is this all happening that we don't see it in our faces?
Well, I mean, there's still trafficking going on. Let's say on Kathleen Street, you'll see sex workers on Kathleen Street, but because of the internet, it's made it a lot more it's not so visible, right? Because you have to actually go out and look for it if you're a John. But we have sites such as Leo's List, Sudbury, where if you Google that, you will see a menu of women that you can choose from, that you could access their services. Again, it's illegal to access their services, but it's not illegal for them to advertise their services. So I just want to be very clear for a John that might think that this is an open door for you to go on Leo's List and start purchasing girls. No. That's illegal.
Christina, we're down to the last minute before we have to end today's show. And I know we probably have a lot more questions to be said. We always share your information on our website, our podcast, anywhere we can with Aging in Action. Do you have any last words within these last 60 seconds that you'd like to share quickly?
I just want everyone to be aware that, this kind of, like I said, this kind of thing doesn't discriminate against a certain class of people, and never think not my child, because that is very deceiving. This could happen to anyone, anywhere. So be aware.
I think we're all just like trying to wrap our head around, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions even just after our taping today. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. We're definitely, hopefully, this is, I think, one of those shows that we don't want to see contact coming your way if we don't have to, because of the topic of nature. It just means somebody else has become vulnerable, and we don't want that to happen. But we do want to educate our community, and I think that's what we're doing today. So thank you so much for joining us on Aging in Action. We hope that this doesn't have any triggers for anyone, but if they do, we have a wonderful organization here that can assist in that manner. So thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. See you all again next week.
Here.